This is my home. It's an apartment unit in Sea Park, PJ. It's got a nice 80s vibe. There are only 264 apartments, so it's pretty low density. Neighbors are mostly senior citizens, and the area is super quiet. So it's perfect for me, except for one problem. There's legally no entrance for me to get home. Sea Park Apartments was built in the 70s and completed in the early 80s. At that time, it was a pretty classy place.
那时候我们这里的 security 有拿住那些K9 dog 来跑的，很有派头的我们这里。
That's Annie and Gary, my neighbors, and one of Sea Park Apartments' very first residents.
厨房呢，以前这里是有一个桩的，我们撤掉了，因为很早顶啊，这里空掉。
They moved in way back in 1981. To put that in context, they've lived here 3 years longer than I've been alive.
那时我还没有结婚，这个 boyfriend 呢就周末都载我来看，讲他说改天我们会搬来这里住，不错啊，很漂亮，环境都好啦，睇到了统统写到很好。
This is a copy of that catalog, and it appears to promise a common area with car parks and greenery within the apartment's own compound. But in 2004, more than 20 years after they moved in, the developer told them that the common area surrounding their apartment blocks wasn't part of the deal. Most residents claimed they were taken by surprise.
So it was just alluded that we had that lot, not that we owned it, but the illusion was there.
住到整20年了。
他才讲说我们没有car park。
This common area is mostly made up of car parks, but also includes other facilities like a sewage processing tank, garbage disposal bins, drains, a security post, and fire hydrants. Now, the developer was willing to hand over the lands to the residents, but only in exchange for a cool 1.32 million ringgit, which they later lowered to 840,000.
这个地方是你们的，没有别人不可以拿的。假如现在这个地方买屋子没有car park，谁要买？
Many residents disagreed with the deal. Some even actively protested against it and sought advice from local authorities. But while the dispute was ongoing, the developer sold off the lands to a business associate. The selling price? 400,000 ringgit. That's less than half what residents were finally offered. So now, my home is surrounded by someone else's private land. Worse still, the facilities that make my home livable are on that private land. This land surrounding these 3 blocks is under a separate title. 227. When I tell experts about this situation, they all react pretty much the same way. First, a bit of shock.
How can this happen?
Wow, never before, right? Where is this? Separate developer?
No, I've not seen apartments or condominiums entirely landlocked by private lands. There is always access to public roads.
Then a slow realization that it's all technically legal.
This block is situated
On one lot.
Yes, tak salah.
By law?
Yes, by law.
The land had already been subdivided in this way, so there wasn't much the land office could have done at that point in time.
Let's unpack that a bit. According to records, the lands were subdivided in 1966, before construction began, into 10 separate lots. The actual apartment blocks were built on 6 of them. When the developer applied for strata titles for the residents, they made 6 separate applications, 1 for each block. So these 6 plots of land are now owned by the residents. The 4 other lots, these weirdly shaped pieces that run between and around the blocks, remained titled to the developer.
Because previously, the law is not strengthened. This type of subdivision cannot happen already. You need to have access. Every strata development, you need to have common property. You need to have all the facility inside one lot, one scheme.
I don't think this problem would arise today under the current laws and under the current practice of the local council and land office.
Unfortunately, these laws, such as the 1985 Strata Title Act, the 1984 Uniform Building Bylaws, and various other local council regulations, were only enacted after Sea Park Apartments was built. By then, the land was already subdivided into these weird shapes, with the developer retaining ownership over the common areas. So, what's it like at Sea Park Apartments today? Well, long story short, after a long court battle where the residents lost at every stage, courts ordered the apartment's management corporation to pay over 1 million ringgit in compensation to the new landowner. The MC couldn't afford it, so its bank accounts are now frozen, and it pretty much no longer functions as an MC. Without an MC, there are no cleaning or security services at the apartments, and no one to pay the utilities bills for the common areas. By October, the water and electricity to the common areas might be cut due to unpaid bills. That means the sewage processing tank will stop working. That's not the end of it. Just last year, the new landowner filed a lawsuit against the State Land Office and managed to claim even this access road as his. This case is currently pending an appeal.
If you're looking from the perspective of the apartment owners, then it is quite a sad ending to a long story. On the other side, if you were the purchaser of the surrounding lands, you would say that the court has upheld your rights as a landowner. You paid good money for this and you should be entitled to a return on that investment.
Well, because it essentially comes to a conflict on who owns the land, and under the law, the third-party owner has all rights to own the land. The tricky situation is that there are people living around there who were bought into this idea that there would be car parks. So, the people are there, you cannot move them away, and you cannot move their cars away somewhere else or so. So that really is the heart of the dispute.
But ownership issues aside, there are consequences to removing common facilities from the control of residents.
I think if this is the way we are going, then this is a sure way of making sure that all residents will be living in urban slums. This place will go down in value, will ensure that there's no agency anymore for people who live there.
Dr. Soraya calls this the vicious cycle of urban slums, and she's seen this happen in her research on Malaysia's social housing schemes. When building maintenance is expensive or difficult, residents are less likely to participate in maintenance. So naturally things will start to break down, which means maintenance is even more difficult, which then leads to less participation. This goes in a cycle, and over time, the property value sinks and there is no sense of community in the neighborhood.
For the government, it was lack of resources and funding. But this is actually people wanting to do it, but because of something that is outrageously done on towards them. If I look at some of the trajectories of people who do this, not in this country, in other countries, is they actually want the area to be in an urban slum, and therefore they can buy cheaper, and after that redevelop the place. So this is more of a human rights issue to my mind. This is actually a fringe on liberty and freedom. I mean, I can't go anywhere else. Now, if the legalities support this, I think we should change the legalities. This is wrong.